What is it? What are the consequences of what's coming for the world? At the end of the day, we have extremely high oil prices, Bitcoin is falling, and the S&P 500 is reaching its peak. All of that which goes unnoticed by most people has effects on their lives. And the IMF itself has come out to issue a warning whose consequences, they warn, will be global. Several reactions that I want to talk to you about today, and well, I would love for you to join us in this broadcast. If not, you can watch it later whenever you want. Please leave a comment and share your opinion. What consequences are you experiencing now because of the oil issue? Have you noticed a change at the supermarket? Many of you have told us that you've seen changes when you go shopping. There is inflation that we're already experiencing because of the rise in oil prices, which sometimes, well, is also kind of a trick, isn't it? I mean, suddenly some companies start raising prices, and really not yet. They haven't actually felt the effect themselves. Big greetings, Jose Zarate. If I missed the other live stream, I was busy here at home. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Remember that, I don't know if you have Telegram or the notification, but you got the notification on Telegram, WhatsApp. We're trying to go live a little earlier than usual because there are several broadcasts a day, right? Well, you already know how the dynamic is. This is ours. Oof, I don't even know how many broadcasts we've done today. And this one we had, this is the sixth, 1,345. This is the sixth broadcast of the day. The sixth broadcast of the day. Well, today was also a special day because there has been a lot of information there. Yesterday, we packed everything together in 2 hours since it was a continuous broadcast on a mostly single topic. This time, as you can see, it's very varied, so it's better to do it separately, right? When you subscribe, click the bell and select all so you get the notification. We update things as they happen and react quickly. Sometimes I'm wrapping up while another live stream is starting. Estri and Trillo, we're working as a team, monitoring all the info. Sometimes there are things we're already waiting to happen. Like this is going to happen. They're going to announce this, so we're already preparing for it. Let's say before it actually happens. And then we talk about it. The IMF says the following. Let's see. If crude oil continues to rise and stays up for a little longer, 1 or 2 more months, right? At most until August. That's enough for the effect to take place. And that's not only reported by the IMF, Bloomberg brings it up, and many analysts mention it in different financial analysis media, right? When discussing the effect, everyone knows it wouldn't just be a recession in the United States, Mexico, or Argentina. It's a global recession. We're talking about a global recession. What happens after recessions? Normally before a recession, there are usually minor conflicts. But when a major recession happens, how do recessions usually happen? Before a recession, there are usually minor conflicts. Global recessions have often followed major wars. So I hope this isn't a sign that something worse is coming. Hopefully, they'll investigate why it hasn't happened yet, especially if they claim this crisis will cause it. Si dicen que esta crisis energética, ¿sí? Es mucho in the present one. Why doesn't it have the same effect as in the 70s? Right? You've noticed that even in the 2008 crisis, many people didn't know there was a crisis. Why? They've realized that even in the middle of the pandemic, with many sectors around the world at a standstill, they realized that the world kept going, kept moving forward, and that the crisis wasn't felt so harshly by many people, by millions of people. It was difficult. I'm not saying it was easy, but it wasn't as hard as in other crises from the 50s from other times, right? Why? So, why did this happen? Well, several factors. But one of the factors is because people have diversified their activities. I mean, a lot of people and the economies right now are very diverse. So now you no longer have just one way to generate income, but you have hundreds or thousands of ways to generate income. I mean, today's economies are much more resilient to crises. That's on a global level. Of course, there are countries that aren't as much. There are countries that obviously haven't done their homework, but in general, even developing countries. How did we see? How did we see in the last 6 years, right? When the whole pandemic happened and all that. How did we experience it? Look, from 2017 to 2022, just to say, we're talking about almost 9 years now. There have been all kinds of changes in infrastructure. There have been changes in this or that, and countries have kept evolving as they want, but they have kept moving forward. So now the crises aren't there anymore, except for Venezuela and other countries, where unfortunately things were already bad, and then everything just got worse. Right? But let's say the crises are a little different. Even so, the warning is still complicated, right? So I want us to analyze it together and try to see where all this trouble is heading and see what signs we're already seeing right now, right? I mean, at first, maybe the crisis right now is a little different. It feels like, yeah, there's a crisis and maybe tomatoes are more expensive. But for example, just yesterday, we went to the supermarket and the price was back to 31 pesos per kilo, right? That's it. That's exactly the same price. It was a few months ago before the war started, right? I mean, it was a little cheaper at some point, but well, it's more or less in the same range. So, what am I getting at? Well, it's kind of an increase, but at the same time, it's like things have gone back to normal a little. Like things have adjusted, right? Especially when it comes to basic things. Things have kind of adjusted. Gasoline is still a little more expensive, but aside from that, the alarms are definitely going off for the near future. The International Monetary Fund warns that the increase in oil prices and related products like fertilizers and plastics, I mean, a lot of transport-related products, basically everything that's used for transportation, right? They say that all petroleum derivatives, gasoline and oil in general, are already creating inflationary pressure on a global level. According to the IMF spokesperson, Julia Kosak, she says that the markets have already started to reflect this effect, but that the main impact will start to be seen later on. The main trigger was the disruption of oil services through the Strait of Hormuz. Since the beginning of the conflict, from February 28th to now, there has been, pay attention to this, a jump of about a 35% increase in the price of oil during the month of March. After the negotiations, it adjusted a little bit, but let's say the price has remained. Well, it's been quite high, hasn't it? Look, I'd like to do a quick calculation because I feel like it's not done right. I feel like the calculation isn't correct. Let me see if you're right. The one from the IMF or not. Let's go to the exact date of the 20th, the one that said 28/20, or you go to when the war began, right? Here it is. Look, that's the jump, and then let's see. But over there, all the way up, let's go with the current price, not the price it once reached, right? Just to be fair. Let's not exaggerate, right? Here's the price, and the price is right here, right now. Well, you're right. Look, there it is. Let me put it on the screen. It's 30%. Right now, everything else, what's above? Well, that's gone. That price isn't there anymore. So it went up by 30%, whichever way you look at it. That's a lot. That's a huge increase because that has a domino effect. Very long, right? So, well, there we can see it, right? It's 30%. It used to be much higher. You can see the graph there. But we're not going to focus on what it isn't anymore. Let's focus on what it is right now, okay? It was running at about 35%. Well, more or less. Although later, with the negotiations between Washington and Iran, it dropped a little. That's why it went from 35 to 30, right? And right now it stays there at 30. At 30. Today is Friday, and you can feel it. The thing is, as you know, on Fridays, except for last Friday, every Friday things get really tense between Iran and the United States to see if one side lowers the oil prices and the other raises them. So from now until 4 p.m. New York time, things can happen, right? We've seen it before at other times. There's not much time left. In fact, what time is it now over there? Well, no, wait, in New York. Maybe it's already time. New York. No, it's 3:20 in the afternoon. So there's almost no time left. So there are about 40 minutes left. 40 minutes and the markets will close. They're going to close. I think that's right, isn't it? Unless something exceptional happens, they're going to close at about 95. Let's not forget that number, in 95 hours, either at night or in the afternoon. If something happens, the price will likely be a bit volatile. But I think that's about where it'll close, right? I insist, unless something happens right now that causes an effect on prices, right? But it seems unlikely that it's going to happen. By the way, Bitcoin is at $59,000 again right now. I mean, I want it, but it's dropping hard, huh? $59,000. The price of Bitcoin is, well, maybe it's a buying opportunity because of the drop. I think it's still going to keep dropping to around 50 something, maybe 51. I think so. I don't know. Let's wait a little longer, right? Huh? According to what the IMF itself says, right? It detects significant movements in financial markets. Above all, they are focusing on a more conservative outlook. In other words, they don't think there will be good profits in the short term right now. But despite that, the S&P 500 is doing well. The OSD, for example, also joined in with the warnings and lowered its economic forecast for 2026, pointing out that there will be an increase in the cost of energy and fertilizers, affecting global growth. So from now until August, we need to make this video again and see if the full signal of a recession is really happening. If the price stays high at $90, $100, then we'll probably be saying in August, hey, maybe a recession will start in 2027. Maybe even the end of the year will close out kind of strong, right? Or on the other hand, maybe things have already calmed down and settled. We have to remember there's the Venezuela factor. And the Venezuela factor means there will be more oil, even though it's not the same type of oil. But well, it will help a little. And there's also the possibility that the Strait of Hormuz could open up again and everything goes back exactly to the way it was before. And oil prices might even go down more. Let's move to another important topic. Check this out. Hey, in important news, Ukraine has reportedly destroyed a military base at the Donetsk airport that Russia was using to launch drones against Kyiv. It's one of the most significant attacks that have occurred in recent days. It shows, well, that part of the objective was to attack military infrastructure, which also supports the logistics of the occupied area. It's an area of Ukraine, but it's an occupied area. That's why the operation was of that magnitude. Ukraine carried out a drone attack on Russian military sites at Donetsk airport. According to what is known, according to the report, let's go to the map to see exactly where this area is. Well, it's a very industrial region. Donetsk is an industrial area. It's a place that has been in the news for a long time because of this conflict. And for Russia, it's been one of the key areas, right? I mean, it's been one of the key points for the objectives they've set, right? This is the Donetsk area. Let's see if we can zoom out a little. That's the Donetsk area. Donetsk, it's an area that's occupied, not all of it, but a percentage, let's say, of this area, this part is occupied by Russia. And from there, they have a base of operations that launches drones to different parts of Ukraine, right? So the base was destroyed. According to reports released by the Ukrainian forces, the main objective was to neutralize the infrastructure used to launch Shahed-type drones, right? The attacks were not limited to the launch platforms. Transport vehicles, technical equipment, and personnel involved in drone operations were also targeted. Among the damages, they reported fuel depots, logistics centers, supply stations, and ammunition arsenals. Elements that would be fundamental to the Russian operational capability in the area. So, well, they're losing one of the toughest, most powerful tools that Russia has there, right? Check out this information now. Hey, check out this fact. In the middle of the invasion of Ukraine, and with all the expenses that a 4-year war involves, it's surprising that Russia has come out and admitted that it has a huge budget deficit. Enorme. Much bigger than expected, according to their own details. Right? This is announced by the Russian government itself, right? Which is surprising. In that sense, that's the message they're sending. The Russian finance minister himself, the one we're seeing on screen, Anton Siluanov, right? Or without Siluanov. Anton Siluanov, according to the report, the deficit is worse than expected. Now, the Russian government officially acknowledges that the deficit is greater than what was projected. The finance minister admits during the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in the historic port city on the Baltic Sea that the forecasts will have to be corrected, and they hope to be able to improve. But the approved budget includes a deficit equivalent to 1.6% of the gross domestic product. That's about $52 billion in deficit. In other words, they're missing that money and don't know where they're going to get it from. However, they claim that this fiscal gap was actually even bigger and that they think it could even get a little larger. School says that they could cover the shortfall using budget reserves, or that there are reserves that could be used to try to fill this gap. The main issue is the military one. I mean, the budget shortfall. In other words, they are missing that money. It's like suddenly thinking, wow, how much will I spend this year? And you realize that what you earn at your job, well, it's not even close to covering all the expenses you have for the basic things, right? Food, health, whatever it is, well, it's not enough. So you say, hey, how am I going to cover it? No, by spending more. How? Well, no, right? Obviously not. And that's what Russia is doing. Russia is spending more. They're making the hole bigger. And basically what they're saying is to let them say it. I think it means they could fire him, because normally this kind of thing isn't accepted. Well, I mean, in a more or less normal country, yes, but the finance guy has to say what's happening and something needs to be done. But nowadays, especially in Russia, that kind of disruption isn't accepted, right? You can't say anything that goes against what the boss said, basically. And if you do, then be ready for the consequences, because if not, you're fired. Now let's move on to the other important matters. Hey, so they discover a new type of plant. This plant we're looking at here, according to reports, scientists have discovered a new species. By the way, this is in northern Peru, right? It's this one. It's something that was discovered in northern Peru. Let's get into the details of how this discovery happened, which, by the way, was published by UNAM itself, right? The international team of scientists confirmed the discovery of a new plant species that was completely unknown to science. It's a great discovery. The species was named Actophyllum limbembens, Lactophyllum limbembens, and belongs to the Rubiaceae family, a botanical group widely distributed throughout Latin America. The discovery took place in a high-altitude area in northern Peru, near a lagoon called Condores, located in the Andean region that connects to the upper Amazon. The researcher who participated was an academic from UNAM named Jaime Alejandro Torres Montúfar, who is responsible for the herbarium at Fez, Cuautitlan, and played a key role in identifying the plant. It all started when the Peruvian researcher Daniel Montesino found a specimen that did not match any known species during the scientific exploration of the region. After the initial discovery, an exhaustive morphological analysis was carried out using microscopes and identification keys specialized for South American plants. The researchers determined that the observed characteristics did not correspond to any species previously recorded in international botanical databases. So, well, it's interesting, a collaboration, in this case between Peru and Mexico, right? And the experts say that this plant would represent what they call a case of microendemism, which means it exists only in a very small geographic. I mean, it's a plant that's not just from that area, and that's it. I mean, when you say area, It's something like an endemic animal, right? Or an endemic plant. Well, it's from the region, but here it's a tiny area, and only in that area do they find that plant. It's really something remarkable. In which he states that because the pollinators travel short distances, the populations of these plants have been able to remain alive for long periods. I mean, they've survived in the area thanks to small pollinators that go around spreading the plant, and somehow, well, they've made it survive, right? And so they show this image, right? This is the little plant, and now, well, it will simply be interesting to investigate its properties and everything, right? It will be super important to understand it. The research was carried out by specialists from Mexico, from Peru, but there were also participants from Germany and the United States, showing that, as they say, cooperation between countries on scientific matters is vital. It's important. By the way, like all serious scientific results, this is published in serious scientific journals, right? And this one is published in a very serious journal called Plants, Ecology and Evolution, where the official record of this new species for world science has now been established, right? So, well, excellent news today. Let's move on to other matters. Let's see. How have you been? Greetings to Sol Garcia, Eliseo, Nicole, and Franco. Greetings from my family in Córdoba, Argentina. Franco and Nicole, greetings to Argentina. How are you both over there? It's winter already, right? Or almost, right? It's nearly winter there, so it'll be somewhat chilly, I guess. Vincent, how have you been? Very good. He says it's complicated because the reconstruction time will be 5 years. He says, let's see, to check further up. What does it say? He says, let's see, here it is. Greetings from Fjord. He says, the situation in Europe is tough. They don't learn every 70 years. They're in combat. Let's hope the Americas don't rise up and that we rise up and go back home. And Vincent, how have you been? Your comment is great. Greetings, thank you. Nova's dad, how have you been? Roshi, greetings to you too. The whole community from California, Florida, Texas, Mexico City, Puebla, right? From Peru, from Argentina, obviously Colombia, Spain. Thank you to everyone watching from different countries, including Puerto Rico. Or Costa Rica too. Yes, that's true. Hello to the Leonardo community. He says, Papi, that's right. Awesome. How have you been, Leonardo? How are you doing over there? Greetings to Esperam. What's your dog's name? Oh man, I forgot your dog's name. But anyway, please send my regards. Also to your little dog. He says, greetings. Okay. Very good, Sol, Eliseo. I hope the sun. To those of you watching later, hey, help us out by sharing and giving us a like. You already know how to support us, right? And throughout the day, we upload some summaries and we also upload some broadcasts about what's happening in the world. We keep updating there. Thank you very much for sharing and for joining us. See you later. Goodbye.